They thought I was just the quiet wife who brought the salad and, till I bought the entire resort they worshipped. Rewrote every rule, and made them beg to stay. This isn't revenge. This is power earned, owned, and unapologetically mine. My name is Nina Caldwell. I'm 35 years old, and right now, I'm standing in the middle of a lakeside resort in Lake Tahoe pretending I don't hear my mother-in-law say, "I forgot the dressing again," like I'm one of her hired caterers. I'm not. I'm an engineer. I've spent the last decade building complex systems for high-speed rail networks across the Pacific Northwest. But to the Caldwell family, especially Darlene, my mother-in-law, I've always just been Ben's quiet wife who works with computers, or something. They never really asked what I do. They just assume I don't do much. I'm used to being invisible at these family retreats. Every summer, they gather at this exact resort, a luxury place tucked between pine forests and the lake, all crystal chandeliers and fireplaces that smell like old money. I show up, smile politely, and try not to take it personally when no one remembers I don't eat pork, or that I already brought the salad, or that I exist. But this year's different. Because this year, I'm not just another guest. I'm the reason the reservation system changed. I'm the one who approved the menu. I'm the person who decided to stop giving the Caldwells their preferred guest discount. I own the place, but nobody knows that. Let me back up. Ben and I have been married almost 11 years. He's a tenured professor, brilliant, introverted, deeply kind in his way. But he never quite found the courage to push back against his family. Not when they asked me to help clear the table, even though none of the other wives were expected to. Not when they called me sweet but basic. Not even when Darlene introduced me to her friends as our Ben's wife from, one of those schools out west. It stung. Especially because I busted my ass to earn my degree. Paid off my student loans, working overtime, and started investing early while they were off in Europe or posting their second homes on Instagram. Still, I stayed quiet, kept building, never tried to outshine anyone. Just watched, listened, saved. 7 years ago, I started buying into small hotels and boutique properties through a fund I helped structure anonymously. Most of it was business. But when this resort came up for sale last year, their favorite resort, I didn't even hesitate. It was expensive. I drained most of my liquidity to make it happen, but I knew it would pay off, and frankly, part of me just wanted to own something that mattered to them, something they thought was above me. Now I'm standing here at the welcome dinner, wearing my old navy sundress while everyone else is decked out in Ralph Lauren and Loro Piana. They're sipping wine and bragging about their new tess as Ben's brother just asked if I could grab a few more napkins from the kitchen. Because I guess I looked like I was heading that way. I wasn't, but I went anyway, because I don't need to argue, not yet. Tomorrow night, the resort manager will announce that the property has a new majority owner. And when they ask who, he'll point to me. The look on Darlene's face. Worth every damn penny. The night after the welcome dinner, I sat alone on the balcony of our room, watching the lake shimmer in the dark. Everyone else had gone down to the fire pit, laughing, drinking wine, roasting marshmallows like something out of a damn lifestyle ad. I could hear them from here. But I wasn't part of it, not really. I had never been. From the moment I married Ben, it was like I had stepped into a world where my presence made people vaguely uncomfortable, not in a hostile way. That would have been easier. No, it was worse. The subtle exclusion. The little ways they reminded me I didn't quite fit. His mother, Darlene, never said anything outright cruel. She never had to. It was in her tone when she asked where I bought my dress. Oh, how practical. In the way she'd smiled too tightly when I spoke up about anything remotely intelligent. Or how she once whispered to Ben just loud enough for me to hear. "She's nice, but she's not very polished, is she?" Ben never confronted her. Never even told me she was wrong. He'd just squeeze my hand and say, "She means well." That was his favorite line. When we first got married, I tried. God, I tried. I hosted Christmas dinners. Brought gifts for everyone. Offered to help organize the family vacations. But nothing was ever enough. One year, I spent weeks planning Ben's dad's retirement party, rented a venue, designed the invites, handled the catering. At the actual event, his sister stood up to give a toast and thanked everyone who helped, then named every sibling, their spouses, and even the caterer by name, not me. Ben noticed. He leaned over, kissed my cheek, whispered, "You know you did most of it." But he didn't say a word to the rest of them. That's how it always was. The week before our 3rd anniversary, His cousin Haley pulled me aside after dinner and said, "You know, it's impressive you've made it this long. Most people who marry into this family just sort of fade out." She smiled like she was complimenting me. I smiled back. And that night, I cried in the shower with the water turned up so Ben wouldn't hear. At some point, I stopped trying. I focused on work. Focused on growing something I could control. That's when I started investing. Quietly, consistently, I worked long hours. Skipped vacations, and drove the same car for 8 years. They all thought it was because I was struggling. They didn't know I was building a war chest, and then, last summer, we were here. This same resort. And something shifted. Ben's uncle made a joke at dinner about me being surprisingly handy for someone who doesn't come from money. Everyone laughed. Even Ben. I just sat there, smiling with my teeth clenched so tight my jaw ached for days. Later that night, I heard Darlene talking to someone on the phone through the thin hotel walls. I don't know who she was speaking to, but I'll never forget what she said. "She's harmless, sweet, but she'll never be one of us. You can just tell by the way she carries herself." That broke something in me. Not because it was new, because it was final. That was the night I reached out to a former colleague who'd gone into hotel acquisitions. And 4 months later, I made my offer on this place. They don't know that. They don't know any of it. The deal closed quietly. I used a holding company, Clear Pines Hospitality Group, to acquire a controlling interest. I kept the existing manager, upgraded some of the back-end systems, and made a few policy changes, all under the radar. But tomorrow night, the name behind the company will be made public at the resort's annual ownership summit, and their jaws are going to hit the damn carpet. But tomorrow night, the name behind the company will be made public at the resort's annual ownership summit, and their jaws are going to hit the damn carpet. The morning started like every other on this trip: mimosas by the lake, eggs Benedict plated like fine art, and a table full of Caldwells talking over each other like they were all auditioning for a reality show none of us asked for. I sat at the edge of the long table, quietly stirring my coffee, while Ben's sister Lauren went on about how service around here has seriously gone downhill since last summer. The others chimed in, piling on like it was a sport. "The check-in girl had the nerve to ask for my ID again," said Haley, flipping her hair over one shoulder like she was giving a deposition. "And don't even get me started on the valet," Uncle Ron added. "Kid practically accused me of stealing my car." I said nothing. Just sipped. Then Lauren said something that made my fingers grip the handle of my mug a little too tightly. "Honestly, I miss when this place was still family-owned. You could tell they cared. Now it's just another faceless corporation trying to act fancy." Ben nodded, completely clueless. "Yeah, I heard some holding company bought it. No soul anymore, just policies." No soul anymore, right? That faceless corporation had upgraded the security system, improved employee benefits, replaced the moldy AC units in half the cabins, and installed a lake filtration system the old owners had ignored for years. But sure, let's pretend it was better when the manager handed out free rows to rich families just for existing. What killed me, though, was that Ben didn't even blink. Didn't sense the irony. He hadn't once asked why I'd been on Zoom calls all week. Why do I disappear every evening after dinner to walk the property with a clipboard? It just didn't occur to him. It never occurred to any of them that I might be important here. I thought that was the worst of it. Until dinner that night. The family gathered in the private dining hall. Darlene had arranged it, of course, and insisted on the dress code. Formal but resort chic, whatever the hell that meant. I wore a navy sheath dress I'd bought on clearance last winter, paired with the same nude heels I'd worn to my college graduation. Darlene looked me up and down like she was inspecting a couch she might return. We hadn't even made it to dessert before the conversation turned again to resort management. "I mean, who renovates the pool deck in August?" Lauren said. "It's like they've never even run a property before. Some tech executive probably bought it as a side hobby." Ben's cousin Marcus chimed in. "Thinks owning a resort is like managing an app. I'd love to talk to whoever's running things. Give them some real insight." Ben leaned over and murmured to me, "Maybe we should leave a review. Could be helpful." I didn't even respond. I was too busy choking down the burn in my chest, and then Darlene, sweet, smiling, passive-aggressive as ever, lifted her wineglass and said, "Well, I just hope whoever bought the place realizes families like ours built its reputation. We're not just guests. We're the reason this place has value." I stared at her, stunned. Not just by the arrogance of it, but by the blind confidence. The way she spoke with such authority, like the world still revolved around her checkbook. I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself from the table and stepped outside into the cool night air. My hands were shaking. And not from the chill. I stood by the stone railing overlooking the lake. Somewhere behind me, someone started playing piano in the lodge, a slow, lilting tune that made my chest tighten. I pulled out my phone and called Ethan, the property manager. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, boss, you ready?" I looked back through the window. They were laughing about something. Probably me. "Do it," I said. "Announce the new ownership tonight. Before dessert." "Copy that," he said. "You sure you don't want to be in the room?" "No," I whispered. "Let them sit in it for a minute." I hung up and waited. Inside, I saw Ethan step up to the head of the room and gently tap his glass. The room quieted. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I didn't need to. I knew the script. As part of our new ownership transition, we're honored to share that Clear Pines Hospitality Group has recently acquired full control of the resort, and tonight, we'd like to acknowledge the owner without whom none of this would be possible. I stepped back inside just in time to hear the end of it. "Miss Nina Caldwell." The silence was deafening. I walked in slowly, heels echoing on the wooden floor. Every head turned. Lauren dropped her fork. Haley's mouth fell open. Darlene's wineglass tilted sideways and spilled onto the white tablecloth, but she didn't even notice. Ben just stared at me like he'd never seen me before in his life. I looked straight at him. "You wanted to leave a review, Ben?" I said calmly. "I'd be happy to forward it to myself." You ever see a whole table of people freeze like they've just been caught talking trash about their boss? Only to realize their boss was sitting 2 chairs away the whole damn time. Multiply that by 10. Add wine. Sprinkle in generational entitlement. That was the dining hall after Ethan announced my name. 3 days had passed since the dinner. 3 days since I stood at the head of that table and claimed ownership of the place. They'd made me feel like a guest for a decade. And the silence. It hadn't ended. Ben hadn't said much. Except for that night when he came to our room, looking like someone had pulled the rug out from under his world. He asked if we could talk, and when I finally let him in, he sat on the edge of the bed, fumbling with the hem of his shirt. "You never told me," he said quietly. "You never asked," I replied. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry, it was just the truth. We'd built our entire relationship on mutual respect, or so I thought, but somewhere along the way, I started fading into the background, and Ben let me. He never made room for my ambitions, never got curious about the weight I carried, and now he was looking at me like a stranger. I suppose I was. "Is this why you were working late?" he asked. "All those trips, the meetings." I just nodded. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it for months. I thought, I mean, I didn't think it was secret. I thought you were just busy. I was, but not invisible. The look that crossed his face then. Guilt, realization, maybe even shame. But no apology. Not yet. He left my room that night with more questions than answers. And I didn't chase him. The following afternoon, Ethan and I walked the property. I wore linen slacks and flats, clipboard in hand. Employees greeted me with respect. Not out of fear, but recognition. They knew what I stood for. We paused near the lakefront, where a crew was prepping the ground for a new deck expansion. "You'd want the wellness center announcement to drop this weekend?" Ethan asked. "No," I said. "Next Thursday. I want it to land after the cocktail event. Let them chew on the idea that this place is growing without them." He smirked. "You're going to do it, the family leases. Every one of them," I said. "No more legacy sweetheart deals. No more favoritism. Just business." Because it had always been personal for them. Now it was just personal for me. That evening, a cocktail party was held for legacy guests. A soft jazz band played on the back patio. Strings of lights glowed overhead. Guests mingled with champagne and whispered about the new ownership like I wasn't already in the room. I let them talk. I let Darlene pretend like she hadn't just had the ground shift under her Jimmy Choos. Then, after the toast was raised to a new era of excellence, I stepped up to the microphone. "Good evening," I said. "Some of you already know me. Some of you thought you knew me." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Behind me, the projector screen changed to the first slide, an aerial rendering of the resort expansion. "We're building more. Not just rooms, but opportunity. A wellness center, lakeside dock, and a community partnership program to support underserved local youth. Another slide. This will be funded through the newly established Caldwell Women's Fund. Gasps. Darlene straightened in her chair. Named not for your legacy, I said, meeting her eyes, but for mine. My mother, Cecilia Caldwell, cleaned motel rooms for 16 years while raising me alone. This fund honors her. Darlene's face crumbled in slow motion. And then the final slide. Also, I added casually, beginning next season, we will review all existing private ownership partnerships, including vacation properties currently leased under long-term arrangements. That did it. Marcus's face went pale. Haley's cocktail glass tilted. I closed the presentation with a smile. Thank you for your continued patronage. For all booking inquiries, please contact guest services. And I walked off the stage. Later that night, I sat alone on the dock, shoes off, toes grazing the water. For the first time in years, I felt calm. Not powerful, not victorious, just real. Then came the messages. Lauren, hey, can we talk? Ben, can we meet tomorrow? Darlene, voicemail. Nina, honey, I think this has all gotten a bit dramatic, don't you? We're family. We can work something out. Woman to woman. The same woman who once asked if I'd considered taking a posture class because engineers tend to slouch, and now she wanted a private audience. I smiled, because she wasn't ready for what was coming next. 3 days after the cocktail event, I sat alone on the dock at sunrise, coffee in hand, watching the water ripple like it was exhaling something long held. The air was still. The lake was calm. But I wasn't fooled. Inside the resort's walls, there was a storm. By noon, my inbox was a battlefield. Ben's uncle had emailed a friendly request to extend his sweetheart lease twice. Lauren had sent a voice memo dripping with faux humility, using the word misunderstanding 5 times. And Darlene. She left a voicemail I only replayed once because hearing her voice forced through a too sweet smile felt like acid on glass. Nina, honey, I think this has all gotten a bit dramatic, don't you? We're family. We can work something out. Woman to woman. Woman to woman. The same woman who once laughed when I offered to help organize Thanksgiving, then turned around and said to Ben, she's got such a giving heart, doesn't she? Even if she's not exactly hostess material. I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was methodical. That week I met with legal, reviewed every single cabin lease. Turns out Lauren had been subletting her family's cabin under the table for years. She'd made over $40,000 in peak seasons, quietly profiting off a property leased under legacy terms. We didn't go after the money, we went after the records. 2 weeks later, she received a formal audit request from the state. I didn't say a word. I just forwarded her the contact info for a very good CPA. Ben's uncle wasn't far behind. His cabin lease had technically expired 2 years ago, but he'd used informal agreements and personal connections to keep the space. He didn't revoke it outright. I gave him 30 days to vacate. Then I handed the unit to a nonprofit that provides vacation access to disabled veterans and their families. They moved in by July 1st. And Darlene, oh Darlene. She showed up unannounced one afternoon, pearls and desperation strung around her neck like armor. Just 5 minutes, she said, eyes wide with an urgency she had never wasted on me before. I let her talk. She spoke about appearances, about legacy, about what people will think. She tried to remind me of Ben. How does this reflect on him? And when she finally paused, expecting sympathy, or at least a polite nod, I opened my desk drawer, pulled out the envelope I'd had ready for days. Inside, notarized, statements from 3 former employees, housekeepers, front desk interns. Each had documented harassment at Darlene's hands. One had been called a mouthy little thing. In writing I had settled each case quietly when I took ownership, apologized, paid restitution. Now I told her calmly, I had a prepared press statement. Should she ever decide to play victim publicly? This isn't a threat, I said. It's a promise. And it's called truth. Her hands trembled when she left. And Ben, he never fought me. Not once. After the reveal, he spiraled. Not in anger, but in questions. About me. About himself. About everything he'd missed. We talked. A lot. Some nights it felt like we were unpacking a decade of silence. He cried. So did I. And in the end, I told him the truth. I didn't even fully realize until it left my lips. I didn't marry into your family to be accepted. I stayed because I hoped one day you'd see me Not just stand beside me, but see me. But now, I don't need that anymore, because I see myself. And that's enough. He moved out a month later. No fight, no dramatic goodbye, just the quiet sound of a suitcase, zipper, and a life gently releasing its grip. We are not enemies. We are not partners, and that somehow hurts less than I thought it would, because I reclaimed everything they tried to shrink in me. The quiet girl who smiled and made the salad, she owns the table. Now the 4th of July weekend came fast. The lake was alive with boats, kids shouting from paddleboards, laughter echoing off the trees. But inside the resort, the mood was different, controlled, focused. Ben came by once more. He stood at the threshold of my office like he wasn't sure if he belonged there anymore. Maybe he didn't. You did it, he said, voice soft, reverent. Like he was trying to reconcile the woman in front of him with the one he never fully saw. I did, I replied simply. He nodded. And you did it alone. I had to. There was no anger in his eyes, just the heavy shadow of regret. That slow, dawning comprehension of what you missed because you were never looking in the right place. I hope one day you find someone who sees you from the start, he said. I already have, I said. She's sitting behind this desk. He left without another word. And I didn't cry. 2 weeks later, the resort hosted its first community event under the new Caldwell Women's Fund, a summer camp for underserved girls interested in STEM. They arrived wide-eyed, full of questions and energy. I watched them tour the property, peek into the kitchens, and ask the maintenance crew how the solar panel system worked. I saw pieces of myself in them, curious, determined, a little out of place, but not invisible. Never again. During the welcome speech, I stood at the same podium where I once revealed my ownership to a stunned room of privileged skeptics. This place, I said, was built on tradition, but traditions that don't grow, they rot. So we're starting new ones. Ones that begin with curiosity, courage, and community. And every one of you is part of that. The applause hit me harder than I expected, maybe because it wasn't about recognition, it was about being seen. Finally, the final twist came quietly. 2 months after Ben left, a letter arrived, no return address, just a wax seal in deep green dot inside. An offer. A private investment firm wanted to acquire Clear Pines Hospitality Group. The number had more zeros than I'd ever seen on paper. It was tempting. I could cash out, move on, start something new. But then I walked through the resort again, past the families enjoying the lake, past the staff who now had health benefits and real job security, past the photos in the hallway of the young girls from the STEM camp laughing in their safety goggles. I emailed back a single sentence. Thank you, but Clear Pines is not for sale. I chose legacy, my kind. It's funny how power works. For years, I thought I had to earn it by becoming someone else, by fitting in, by shrink myself into palatable shapes for other people's comfort. But real power, it doesn't come from their approval. It comes from reclaiming your space, from knowing your worth. Refuse to let other people define your story. So here I am, Nina Caldwell, engineer, owner, daughter of Cecilia, who taught me what dignity looks like in a cleaning apron. This resort doesn't just bear my name on paper, it carries my blood. And if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or quietly erased, let this be your sign. Your story isn't over, it's just getting started.